Today the rover is going to be landing on the surface of Mars, which is an absolutely epic scientific achievement. And I wanted to get outside tonight and try and capture an image of Mars positioned above the moon. The approach that I'm taking is going to be to use an image stacking approach. So I'm going to take some different samples of different ISO settings and different exposure lengths to see what the sweet spot is, because we've got a sort of crescent moon tonight, so that's going to be letting off some light, and we've got light pollution around being let off from my own house actually, and in the distance over there's a village, so we'll see what impact light pollution has on the shot. I'm going to talk you through how I'm going to capture the shot and then show you the final results once I finish processing those images. I'm working with a manual focus lens. Fortunately I've got the light set on my GoPro shining here so I can really see where the focus is set. I'm also having to manually set aperture. The first shots I'm going to take are going to be at f2.0, so I'm really opening the lens up, but I'll probably tweak that down to 2.8 in the end. I'm going to take a few shots here and see how that pans out. At the moment I can see a very clear sky, there's stars everywhere. We've got the moon just here, and I can directly see Mars positioned above the moon. So I'm going to try and take a couple of sample shots here and see what sort of impact the light pollution's having, and take a look at some of those images to test what my final results are going to be. A disaster of absolute epic proportions has occurred. So I was taking this shot over in the far corner because it was much darker over there, and on reviewing the images the composition just sucks. So I've moved more central into the garden. I'm in a really precarious position because I've got a pond. Jesus Christ. Take up photography, they said. It would be fun, they said. Jesus Christ. I'll see you on the other side, because I think after this I'm going to be done actually. I'm back in and working in Lightroom to take a look at some of the images that I've captured. So I'll see you in the warm. So as much as I didn't like the first composition, and I'm still not massively keen on it, I think I captured a better image of the moon and of Mars sat above it just here. This actually is a pretty good image, all things considered. We get right in nice and close and take a look at some of the detail that we've captured in here. And this is with no processing apart from having stacked. This was actually a total of 14 images. We've got a little bit of badness happening over here. I think that happened because I left the aperture open at f2. I should have really changed it to f2.8, but it's not a huge drama. This was the area of the sky that I was particularly interested in, so that's where the rover touched down tonight, just there. I'm going to take both of these pictures into Lightroom, and I need to make a decision about what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to end up editing both of them and seeing how both of them pan out, because it could be that we could do something with the cropping on this image to turn it into a more appealing image, but we'll see what it looks like when I'm looking at the foreground as well. So we've got both of these images opened up in Photoshop as layers. So we have the sky with the moon and Mars. We have the foreground with a blurry sky because of a long exposure. So what we're going to do is hold down Alt, and we're going to click the mask option just here. We're going to make sure that the brush is white, the foreground color is white, and we've got a brush selected and quite a feathered brush and quite a low flow. And all I'm going to do is just work across the image and start working the details of the foreground into this image. Whoops, that didn't pan out. That was a brush stroke too many. Let's do this down here. Expose this here. There's some details over here that we want to capture. And the hedgerow. Oh, we don't like that. I think we'll make the brush a bit smaller. It's a bit too much light right there. Let's just bring it across. That's not good there. And that just looks too obvious. Let's work on the areas down here. The problem is that the sky is behind here, so we've got to be careful what we're doing, because as you can see it's kind of peeking through over here and it's the wrong colour. Let's grab some of the details over here. This takes a bit of a gentle hand, if I'm being honest. Let's work on the shadow here. Okay, so we can see these are here. I'm not happy about that bit in the middle, but I'll come back to it in a moment. I'm not going to mess around over here because you've got these annoying trees which ruin my composition anyway, and I say it ruined the composition, I'll be honest. Look, this isn't panning out too badly, is it? So I'm going to save that. And that's going to jump back into Lightroom for me once it's saved. Right, so we are looking at 3 images combined currently, and there's still work to be done, particularly around this section just here. I've got a set of presets installed by a chap called Alan Wallace, a great Astro landscape photographer who is incredibly talented. He sells some presets, which is a bit more of a workflow, but it's got a few useful tools in there. If anybody's into this type of thing, I recommend finding his website. I think he charges something like £20 for the presets. It's worth every penny. If anything, just for the brushes. I'm actually going to use one of his brushes here, which is Darken Sky, and I'm just going to work on, see the image, I'm going to work on the areas over here with a lower flow, but I just want to knock out some of the glow. And obviously that kind of panned out okay. And the other thing that we can use is the light pollution reduction, and we'll lower the flow even more on that. So I'm going to work on these areas around here. So the problem area that was bothering me in Photoshop just now. Holy Mother of Christ, that was a preset I went over. Okay, so we're just subtly working on some of the light pollution here. I think I'm going to up the flow a little bit more. Just work on what was there by the house as well. I think that's done. It's one of those where you've got to really step away from the image and come back to it, and I think I'm going to do that. I'm gonna walk away from this image and come back to it tomorrow. We've got a second image that I want to work on, and I'll compare the two images side by side and work out which one I want to keep. I think ultimately this image is gonna need cropping anyway. Some of the house doesn't look right, and see, now we're losing the foreground. I like the way the light's playing down here as well, and we're losing some of that detail. I don't think I want the house in the image. Let's just see what it looks like. It's not too bad. Okay, I'm going to walk away from the image at this point, and come back to it tomorrow and see what else I think I could do with it. I'm going to move on to the second image now. For the second image, I'm going to actually show you some of those Alan Wallace presets that I was talking about. This isn't a Milky Way image, so it's some of the things in it wouldn't be directly applicable, but as a workflow, it's still a good workflow. So we've already done the lens corrections before we stack the images, and we don't need to go through that process again. This will go through a process of working through a workflow effectively. So the first thing is to select a tone. So we're editing the tone settings effectively. So some predefined tones that we could use here. If we go down and find one that we like the look of. So it's between that, and they're very similar. I'm going to go with that. We're then going to work on the noise. The best thing to do is to not zoom in at 100%. We're going to get noise on the image, and we can see that there is some noise still even after we stack the images. So let's start at 20, work up to 25. Let's go all the way to 50. We don't need to. It's not having a massive impact at this point. Let's stick with 25. Okay, we're gonna auto set the white balance, so that's going back to auto. Okay, and at this point, what we would normally do, particularly if it was a Milky Way image, is bang the vibrance right the way up, bang the saturation right the way up, and take a look at the different colours that exist within the image. I mean, look at some of these stars and the colours that we've captured in the sky. Look at the colour. It's great. We've got light pollution here coming from the house, and we've got a little bit of light pollution over here. It's the moon which has really played havoc with this shot tonight there. Let's just take a look at the temperature and the tint and see what we can do with that. So I actually want to reduce it a little bit, I think, and I think we'll knock some of the tint down as well. If we reset the vibrance and the saturation at that point, we can see what that's done to the image, and I think that looks okay in my opinion. Okay, so at that point we can then start looking at the color for the image. I personally, my preference, boom, look at that one. My preference is always to try to replicate the colors that I was looking at, and I was looking at a black sky, so I'm going to select that option just there, and we can then go further and start editing and tweaking within here, but we can start looking at the tone and the curve. I mean, even just playing with the highlights, the lights, the darks, and the shadows. So we could start looking at some of the shadow, and in fact, I might tweak. See, my monitor is really bright. I share a lot of these images on social media, so I tend to create images that are too dark for being shared on social. This perhaps might look too light at this point, but by the time you export it and share it on Instagram or whatever, it really helps the image pop at that point, to have it ever so slightly lighter anyway. I'm happy-ish with this. I just want to take a look at the sharpening, and I'm going to have a look at the mask. If you hold down Alt, so I think that's okay. Right, the image that I want to combine this with is this one. Just looking at the color differences between the two. And I'm worried about this area here and the details between the branches, which is going to be really difficult for me to blend, and if there's that much difference, this is quite dark. It's going to be a challenge to blend those two images, but do you know what? I'm going to give it a bash. There's Mars. Right, I'm going to give this a go and come back to you. So having successfully combined both images, the foreground with me sat there looking at my phone, sat underneath the tree with Mars above me, highlighting some additional interest. The cluster here of stars that is just up and above to the left of Mars. I decided not to alter the moon in the same way in which I did in the other shot, because I think that it looks a lot more natural. I was definitely happier with this composition and the end result. Again, I think it's time to step away from the image and see how I feel about it when I look at it tomorrow before I decide to do anything with it. I might not post either image because they were just a couple of shots from the back garden, but hopefully this gives you an idea of what you can achieve with a little bit of work and a little bit of thought, and even if you come away with less than satisfactory results, you've always got an opportunity to learn. I've learned some new skills today in terms of my techniques in blending foregrounds and backgrounds, and I also learned that it's bloody difficult to capture a crescent moon. I think in the future what I'll do is take another lens out with me and actually take a zoomed in shot of the crescent moon and try to create a composite image of the moon, and then use that to fuse it into the image. But I was always on to a really tough task because of all of the trees and so on. I'm making excuses now. Do you know what? I'm quite happy with this image here. I think that at the minute that's a good result. I will come back to it tomorrow and see how I feel about it then. Thanks for staying with me all evening. I hope you enjoyed the video. Do check out my Instagram account where the shots should be posted if I can brave showing them publicly alongside the video. And feel free to drop a comment below. Thank you.